Take a journey with us through the world's toughest prisons, starting with the most notorious of them all. Black Dolphin Prison.
Russia's Black Dolphin prison houses some of the country's toughest, most violent.
The only way to get out of Black Dolphin is in a body bag. Coming at the top of our list is one of the most horrific places you never want to find yourself.
I've been here for 17 years, and I've never heard anyone say they don't regret it or they'd kill more.
The Black Dolphin Prison, located in Seletsk-Orenburg Oblast, Russia, close to the border with Kazakhstan. The facility is one of the oldest in Russia, where prisoners are held in the most inhumane conditions possible.
At the moment, I'd prefer the firing squad. What have I got to live for anyway?
Inmates are kept isolated in cells that are protected by 3 sets of steel doors, with 24-hour surveillance and supervision. For 16 hours every single day, inmates are forced to stand on their feet without resting on their bunks or sitting down until bedtime. Escape is impossible, as a guard makes rounds every 15 minutes, ensuring that every inmate complies with the rules. The guards in charge of Black Dolphin rule the place with an iron fist, giving no room for insubordination or any form of escape attempt. Arriving inmates are blindfolded and bent over at the waist, with their hands handcuffed behind their backs. This is to prevent the prisoners from mapping out their area, a crucial detail that would play a vital role in any escape attempts. Whenever inmates need to get out of their cells, they also assume this same position, depriving them of a clear view of their environment, which also quells any potential attack on prison guards. To keep themselves company, inmates depend on books, newspapers, and a radio, while a pitiable meal of soup is fed to them 4 times a day, just enough to keep them alive. Inmates incarcerated at Black Dolphin often bear a demeanor of resignation, their spirits broken as they try to navigate the delicate process of surviving the hellish conditions of the facility. Gitarama Prison, Rwanda. Taking a walk through Gitarama Prison in Rwanda is like walking through hell, as the facility has been widely acclaimed as one of the deadliest in the world. Built to house just 600 inmates, Gitarama is currently home to between 6,000 to 7,000 inmates. As a result of the extreme overcrowding, inmates are sometimes forced to spend most of their time standing on their feet, leading to serious physical deformities, and sometimes their legs even begin to rot. The most haunting reality in this prison, however, is the ingrained culture of cannibalism, which has become a vital survival tool in a world where food is scarce and far in between. Inmates murder other inmates, consuming their remains to ensure their own survival, a level of brutality that challenges the human mind. According to proven statistics, about 7 to 8 prisoners die every day in Gitarama, either from the pockets of violence that punctuate their days or just out of pure exhaustion and severe underlying health issues. Even though many human rights organizations have protested against the deplorable conditions of the facility, the Rwandan government doesn't seem to have any interest in improving the livelihood of the prisoners, and instead, they keep pumping more and more people into the prison system, stretching them thin even as the conditions worsen day by day. As of today, Gitarama is considered one of the toughest prisons in the world and is definitely not a place you want to wish upon your worst enemy. Kamiti Maximum Security Prison, Kenya.
I was arrested, arraigned in court and charged and tried for a sexual offenses under the Sexual Offences Act, and then I was later on convicted and sentenced to serve 21 years imprisonment.
I landed into prison with the case of murder, a charge of murder case of a friend, a close friend of.
Kamiti Maximum Security Prison, Kenya. Famed as one of the toughest prisons in Africa, Kamiti Prison is one place you never want to find yourself. The facility is located within the Kasarani district, bordering Kiambu County in Nairobi, Kenya. The building sits on a 1,200-acre estate and has seen its fair share of violence and brutality that will make you quake in your boots. Kamiti has been home to several political prisoners over the years, including Hussein Onyango Obama, Kenneth Matiba, and Koigi wa Wamwir. Countless executions have also taken place at the grounds, most notably the hanging of Mau Mau rebel leader Dedan Kimathi by the British colonial administration in 1957, although capital punishment has since been abolished in Kenya. What makes Kamiti Prison even more famous is the utterly poor conditions the housemates are forced to live in, as well as the inhumane treatment dealt out by the guards, who rule the place like gods. There is no reliable water supply, and inmates have to haul buckets of water around all day to tend to their most basic needs. The prison is also grossly overcrowded, housing 3,600 prisoners instead of the intended 1,400. The most notorious arm of the prison is the condemned G Block, which is a hub for predatory sodomy and mobile phone confidence tricksters. On November 17, 2008, a video capturing wardens' brutality beating inmates at the facility surfaced online, prompting protests and calls for an overhaul of the country's prison system. In November 2009, the unhygienic conditions of the prison caused the deaths of at least 8 prisoners after they succumbed to the cold grips of a cholera outbreak. Truly, Kamiti Prison stands out as one of the toughest prisons in the world. Camp 22, North Korea. Standing as a testament to the abuse and gross disregard for human rights embedded in the North Korean system is the Hwaryeong concentration camp, also known as Camp 22. This highly secretive facility was located in Hwaryeong County in the North Hamgyong Province, North Korea, near the border with China. While many of the other prisons we explored in this video are regarded as correctional facilities, Camp 22 was built for an entirely different purpose.
We heard the screaming, he says. By the time we got there, 3 were already dead, bitten in the neck. One dog was eating the stomach of a child. The other 2 were bitten but still alive. They were all buried together. 2 of the children were buried alive.
This is a death camp, built with the very intention of ending the lives of anyone who finds themselves within its walls. There is no release date and no parole, which gives the guards a free hand to perpetrate unspoken abuses of human rights on any and every inmate they choose. The prison is completely isolated from the outside world, so most of the horror stories never make it out of the walls of the prison. Based on the principle of 3 generations of punishments, which is a controversial concept embedded in the North Korean justice system, many of the inmates are imprisoned along with their children and grandchildren. All detainees are held till the day they die. No one ever left the prison except in a body bag.
근데 가가 잡혀서 트럭에다가 지지지 끌고 내려오라고 사이다 태우지도 않고.
As of the 1990s, about 50,000 inmates were detained in the camp, most of whom were people who criticized the regime: South Korean prisoners of war, Christians, returnees from Japan, and even some purged party members. Many of the cells housed up to 100 prisoners. Walls were made of mud and had cracks everywhere. Prisoners were forced to do their business in dirty communal toilets. Old and sick prisoners were quarantined and left to die. In summary, it was hell on earth. Inmates were also subjected to grueling physical labor, including farming, mining, among others. The most interesting part of this story is that till date, the North Korean government has never acknowledged the existence of this facility, which means many of the inmates will never find justice. La Sabaneta Prison, Venezuela. Taking a trip to the other side of the world, follow us to one of the most notoriously violent prisons in the world. The Maracaibo National Prison, also known as Sabaneta Prison, is located in the state of Zulia, Venezuela, and is famed for its inhumane conditions, constant violence, and gross overcrowding. Built to house about 700 inmates, La Sabaneta was home to over 3,700 inmates, with an estimated 192 being the children of the inmates. One peculiar feature of this facility is the fact that it is being run by the prisoners themselves, a system that leaves room for exploitation, gang violence, and gross abuse of human rights. Inmates incarcerated at the facility are forced to live in the most unhealthy conditions possible, with little to no access to adequate medical care, food, or even clean water. On top of that, being an inmate at La Sabaneta means you have to watch your back at all times, as violence could break out within the blink of an eye. The prison has experienced several riots over the years, including one on January 3, 1994, which resulted in over 150 casualties.
Seeing inmates with weapons, with grenades, the smell, seeing literally excrement coming from the walls, just the amount of, open sewers everywhere, absolutely deplorable conditions. It felt almost like a war zone, like post-apocalyptic thing.
And another in 2013, which led to the death of up to 69 inmates through the course of the year. The prison was eventually closed in 2013 after 55 years of operation, and the government is working to convert it to a museum. ADX Florence Supermax. This next correctional facility is home to some of the most hardened criminals in the United States, including famous Mexican drug lord El Chapo, 9/11 conspirator Zacarias Moussaoui, and the Olympic bomber Eric Rudolph. ADX Florence is a federal prison located in Fremont County near Florence, Colorado. The prison opened in 1995 and has since earned a reputation for its notoriety and the high-profile detainees that call the place home. The prison is situated on 49 acres of land and features varying security levels, depending on the level of danger the inmate poses to the society. Social interaction is limited or nearly non-existent for high-security inmates, and control is affirmed with an iron fist. ADX Florence houses 331 inmates with a capacity of up to 474 inmates, although it has never been at full capacity since it was opened. Most of the inmates incarcerated at the facility have an extensive history of causing trouble in other prisons, which requires they be placed under heavier security. Most of these inmates are placed under administrative segregation, and they spend up to 23 hours a day in solitary confinement, dealing a heavy blow to their mental health. During the limited hours they spend outside of their cell, these inmates are kept under restraint as they go about their daily exercise. Food is more of a necessity than a luxury, and the diet is restricted to keep the inmates from causing harm to themselves or creating unhygienic conditions in the cell. If an inmate exhibits good behavior, they gradually earn more outside time and may even be transferred to a less restrictive prison to serve the rest of their sentence. Guantanamo Bay Detention Camp, Cuba. Located on the coast of Guantanamo Bay in Cuba is this detention facility, known to be one of the most notorious prisons in the entire world. Guantanamo Bay Detention Camp was established in 2002 by the then President of the United States, George W. Bush, following the 9/11 attacks as part of the War on Terror that followed the tragedy. Since then, the facility has earned a reputation for its utter brutality, human rights abuse, and inhumane conditions. One major feature of this prison is the fact that many of the criminals incarcerated within its walls were sent there without trial, spending extended periods behind bars without ever receiving a sentence for their supposed crimes. There have also been several cases of abuse and torture by the prison guards, who exact their authority without question or any form of consequences for their actions.
The big problem we have is that all these people are in a legal limbo. They cannot challenge their detention, and they've been kept until now, since 15 months, under outside the judicial process completely.
Hardened criminals are subjected to abusive interrogations, sometimes extracting forced testimonies from these inmates who just want to put an end to their suffering. In 2004, 3 British Muslim prisoners formerly incarcerated at the Guantanamo Bay detention camp were repatriated to the United Kingdom, where they were immediately released without charge. Once they were out, they spoke of their horrible experiences with torture, intimate degradation, forced drugging, and the religious persecution by the United States forces. Due to the hellish conditions many of the inmates are put through, there have been several reports of many of the detainees taking their own lives, adding another layer of complexity to the issues that plague the prison. Tadmor Prison, Syria. With a horrifying reputation that has sparked several protests from human rights organizations, the Tadmor prison located in Palmyra, Syria remains one of the toughest prisons in the world.
My organs are out. I'm almost in Deir ez-Zor province. Where? In Deir ez-Zor city. My organs are out of my stomach, and I have injury here and in my back.
The facility itself was originally built as a military barrack by the French Mandate forces. Around the 1980s, the facility began housing thousands of Syrian political and criminal prisoners. One unforgettable event that will forever stain the history of Tadmor is the 1980 Tadmor prison massacre. Following the failed attempt by the Islamist Muslim Brotherhood to assassinate President Hafez al-Assad, his brother Rifat al-Assad, along with the members of the defense brigades, entered the facility at dawn. And by the time their murderous rampage was done, thousands of prisoners lay dead around the prison. As the angry soldiers stormed the facility, they unleashed their terror, moving from cell to cell as they shot indiscriminately at inmates suspected to be part of the Islamist Brotherhood. The prison was then closed in 2001, and all the detainees were transferred to other prisons across Syria. But this was not the end of its gory history. On June 15, 2011, about 350 individuals were arrested for participating in anti-government protests and were subsequently transferred to Tadmor for interrogation and detainment. The facility was eventually captured by the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant in May 2015, and the buildings were destroyed with explosives on May 30th, marking an end to the horrific experiences that have become a part of the prison's history. Although Tadmor no longer stands as a symbol of oppression and injustice, the memories of the horrors experienced within its walls will forever be ingrained in the memories of those who were able to make it out of hell alive. Diyarbakir Prison, Turkey. Diyarbakir Prison was established in 1980 as an E-type prison in Diyarbakir, southeastern Turkey. But after the September 12, 1980 coup, the prison was transferred to the military administration and subsequently became a martial law military prison. It was eventually returned to the Ministry of Justice in 1988. With a capacity of 744, Diyarbakir houses about 942 prisoners, a case of overcrowding that dealt a heavy blow to the health of many of the inmates incarcerated within the premises. Between 1981 and 1984, the prison went through a period known as the Hell of Diyarbakir, or the period of barbarity, when prisoners were subjected to barbaric tortures. The situation got so bad that the prison even made Time's list of the 10 most notorious jails in the world. Today, the prison remains a symbol of oppression and abuse, a reputation it has held on to for many decades now. Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. Taking the final spot on our list is the United States Penitentiary, Alcatraz Island. In its heyday, this facility was known to be the most secure prison in the United States, and it remained escape-proof until its closure in 1963. Although it's no longer operational, Alcatraz deserves a spot on this list owing to the level of brutality that was perpetrated within its walls. This 3-story cell house was made up of 4 main blocks. Each prison cell measured 9 feet by 5 feet and was only 7 feet high. Facilities were primitive, and privacy was a luxury you couldn't afford in this place. The most notorious part of the prison was the D block, which was home to some of the most dangerous criminals sent there for brutal punishments. The 6 cells at the end of the block were famously known as the Hole, and only those who were unfortunate enough to find themselves there can recount the horrors they saw with their very eyes. There was serious segregation, and minority groups faced some of the worst conditions possible. When Alcatraz was still in operation, it gained a reputation as the toughest prison in America, and was even regarded as the most fearsome prison in the world at some point. Former inmates recount details of brutality and inhumane conditions, which took them to the brink of insanity.
2 inmates killed each other, and I was right in the middle of it on my first day, my first assignment, and my first hour. I got my leg cut 10 inches long.
One writer even described the prison as the great garbage can of San Francisco Bay, where every federal prison dumped its most rotten apples. Alcatraz was eventually closed on March 21, 1963, and has since been converted into a museum, attracting 1.5 million visitors every year.